Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're gonna do some more shadow work, but today we're gonna do it with tarot and oracle cards. I'm gonna go over the tarot cards I use, the oracle cards I use, the way I lay my cards out, spreads, whatever. I even brought along my 2020 journal to show you guys how I do it. I did a lot of tarot and oracle pulls for shadow work in 2020. It was a huge growth year for me, as I think most people, honestly. So I'm gonna show you like how I actually write it out, how I actually do it. Really, and I'll show you my journal. I'll probably blur out most of what it says, obviously, but I will show you how I do it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Couple of quick side notes. If you haven't seen my other video on shadow work where I do the intro and journal prompts, I would recommend that if you're new, especially. I go over my whole like what shadow work is and why it's important and why it's good and all those things in that video. So I'll put that in the description box below. I'll also put like a little card right here so you can go see it. And one more notation is that in an effort to show that I don't just talk the talk, I also walk the walk. Today, I am almost makeupless. I have my own, journey, my own healing that I'm doing. And one of those things that I'm working on is this idea that I am not the appropriate person to make a YouTube channel. Like I don't feel like an overweight middle-aged mom is the kind of person who's allowed to make a YouTube channel. I feel like I'm supposed to be like a hot 22-year-old yoga teacher, and I'm not, and I get really insecure about it. So I just put like a ton of makeup on, and I get really, like, it's a whole thing. I get very anxious about being on camera. I don't really like being on camera. It's not my natural state of being. So I'm working on that, and one of the ways that I'm doing that is that today I put on mascara. That's really what's happening. So, naked face. I wanted to do that just because I want it to be known that like I am also working on me, and I do actively do these things. I do actively, regularly, constantly dig into my own shadows. I'm not just here lecturing you on some bullshit I don't know anything about. I genuinely do these things. And today is an example of that where I'm showcasing me doing it by putting this face on the interwebs. Now, let's talk about the specifics. I made a spread, and I'm gonna show you guys, that I think would be really, really good if you're new to shadow work and tarot, right? I think if you're really experienced with tarot, you don't need the spread. But if you're new to both, or if you want to do shadow work, you don't even have tarot cards, I made a spread for you to help you get started. However, realistically, what I actually typically do is I just pull like 3 tarot cards and I allow my intuition to guide me. Now I said in my previous video, and I will go over it again briefly, when you tell your subconscious mind that you are ready, when you say that you're ready to dig and ready to heal, your mind and your soul and everything will just align to like let you in. It's like once you give yourself permission to start to dig into your shadows, it's not hard to discover them, really. I mean, it's still shadow work, but it's like the act of wanting to uncover them shows them to you. So if you just pull 3 cards and allow your intuition to guide you, it'll surface up. Additionally, you're also asking for external guidance by using the cards, right? So you have external guidance coming in, and then you're allowing your internal mind to come forward. So it all kind of comes together. It's a really powerful mechanism. I really believe that. So if you aren't new to tarot, if you're an experienced tarot person and you're cool with it, I would tell you to honestly just pull 3 cards. Now, what I will usually do is pull 3 cards as a base point. Sometimes I will need to dig in further. Sometimes I'll pull a bunch of oracle cards to go with it. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I literally just kind of wing it. I'm going to show you in my journal right now what that looks like. This is how I always laid it out. I just wrote the date, my daily cards, and then I make a key. I put a box on here that says the decks I used and the cards I pulled. Now, sometimes I'll just start writing what immediately comes to me, but most of the time, I'll actually break out each card. So each card will have a section where I actually break down that card and what it's telling me about what I need to work on or what I need to address or what I'm not seeing, depending on how it comes through. At the end, I will usually write my overall like synopsis, and I'll usually draw, not always, but I usually draw a diagram of kind of what the cards I pulled like the position of them, and if they're upright, like just the act of doing that will make you so much more aware of the things you discover in each reading. Now, in 2020, I did this most days. I will tell you that this is honestly one of the major contributing factors to all the growth I had in 2020. Now, I'm going to tell you about the spread that I created, and then I'm going to also tell you about the decks that I use. The spread that I created is a simple 3-card spread, okay? The first card that you're going to lay down is going to be your what pattern am I looking at? Like, what pattern am I seeing? The second card is going to be the shadow that's linked to that pattern. And the third one is going to be your advice. Now, if you're totally new, here's what you're going to do. You're going to pull all 3 of those cards. And you can do this however you want, right? You can shuffle them all out, let 3 fall out and take them, whatever feels right to you. You could shuffle your cards, spread them across the table, and then just let your intuition guide you to pick 3 cards. You could shuffle the cards and then cut it in the middle and take the top 3 right there. You could shuffle your cards and just take the top 3. It's going to be whatever feels right to you. Trust your intuition, trust yourself to guide you, because you will do well if you just trust yourself. So once you do that and you pull those 3 cards, I want you, if you're new and you're not familiar with the cards, or if you aren't new and you just kind of don't know, like if you're not new and you're pull your cards and you're like, I don't know what the fuck this is trying to tell me. This happens. It happens to me, especially with shadow work, because you're like, I don't know. I have a tarot book that I'll recommend, and I'll put a link down below. It'll be an affiliate link, like everything else that I link below, pretty much. But it's a really, really great book if you are trying to do shadow work and you aren't new to tarot, or you are, and you just need a little more like, what is this fucking trying to tell me? I'll go through and I'll read that book. I'll read the page on that. And I'll read it very slowly and very intentionally. If that doesn't do it, I'll go to biddytarot.com and I'll read hers, because it's always different, but it's always very thorough. And then just pay attention to your emotional body. If you feel like your emotion, like a little trigger, anything in there, like if it's annoyed, if it's a little like uncomfortable, a little pain, a little twinge inside when you're reading something, stop at that moment and look at what you're reading, because that is your emotional body that is reacting to that particular part of the card, which is a signal to you that that's the thing, like that's the key. So just start journaling on that. Like, I had a reaction when I read this particular line, and then figure out how that applies to your life, and do that throughout. So the first card is the pattern. What pattern in your life? Because your shadows are always going to create patterns, right? Like it's going to be a habitual pattern that keeps happening, a reaction you always have, a trigger you always have, situation that always occurs, something that always happens to you, these kinds of things. There's going to be a pattern. So the first card's going to help you identify a pattern, and then you go, oh yeah, that is a pattern. That does always happen to me, right? The second card is going to be the shadow that's linked to it. So the second card is going to tell you what thing within you is creating that pattern. So dive into that, start journaling it out, and figure out how you connect the dot from card 2 to card 1. And then the third card is going to be a divine guidance card. It's going to be guidance to help you figure out how to move forward with this. I recommend doing this as often as you feel the need to. Sometimes you have to work on the same shadow all over again. Sometimes when I start my cards, I will know. Like, for instance, maybe I'm working on my self-image. Maybe I'm working on my limiting beliefs that I have to be a hot 20-year-old yoga teacher to be on YouTube. And I'll be like, I don't know what to do about this. And I'll just pull 3 cards for advice on the next day, or the next day, or the next day. I'll pull advice cards for as many days as it takes me to work through the issue or to figure out what to do. You know, like maybe, for instance, for today, I might pull a card and it would say something about, you know, leading the way or speaking your truth or something like that, right? or getting out there and, you know, stop being so introverted. And that I would then interpret to like, I have to like do the thing I'm uncomfortable, go forward with my face without a bunch of makeup on and just go on YouTube anyways, like that kind of thing. Then I will usually, if I feel I need to, and if I like to, I'll throw oracle cards on top. So I'll go through the tarot cards and then I'll throw down a few oracle cards. Now, additionally, I know I'm talking really fast, but additionally, if you're new entirely to the whole process, you might want to just start with oracle cards. They are far, far, far easier to interpret. Like so much easier, it's kind of crazy. So you might want to just pull 3 oracle cards instead of 3 tarot cards if you're new. If you're not and you're experienced with tarot, I recommend going with tarot and then maybe throw some clarifying oracle cards on top. These are a lot of options. It's going to be dependent upon the person. Everybody's journey is different. So trust yourself to make the right choices for you and your growth. And if you do that, I promise it'll work out. All right, now the decks that I use. I really think that the decks you choose to use are really important. I'm going to tell you the ones that I use. I'm going to tell you why I think they're great. But I really think that each person is different. So, I mean, live your life. Do whatever deck feels right to you. But I'll explain the ones that I use and why. First of all, let's go over tarot. So there's 3 tarot decks that I like to use. One is just the Rider-Waite. I'm a Rider-Waite, ride or die. So I love it. It's great for everything, right? I highly recommend just getting a straight Rider-Waite deck if you don't already have one and using that. The second tarot deck that I love, and I would probably say this is the one I use the most. Like when I'm doing shadow work pulls, I mostly use this deck, and that is the Light Seers Tarot. Now, if you've seen any of my videos that I've, my favorites video or my tarot review collection videos, you know that I adore. This is, oh my God, this is like the best deck. After the Rider-Waite deck, this is the best tarot deck ever made that I've ever seen. I absolutely love it. It's amazing. This deck is so good for shadow work, and there's a couple of reasons why. One, it comes with this little guidebook, right? Now, it's not very big, but it's magic. Each card has a little affirmation at the end. And the way that it's written out, you have Light Seer and Shadow Seer, which is upright and reversal. Now, for reversal, she only has keywords. She doesn't really do a whole description. She says in the intro of the book that she doesn't really use reversals, but she knows some people do, so she did include some information. Like, it is built into the deck, but she doesn't really care for them. Sometimes I use reversals in the deck, sometimes I don't. It depends on how I feel. But she just includes kind of keywords. Regardless, the affirmation at the end is so helpful. I just opened it up to Ace of Cups, and that one says, "My heart is open and filled with love." So it's like every card has an affirmation, which I think is really, really helpful when you're doing this kind of journaling shadow work. It's, I swear, magic happens. Additionally, the descriptions that she has of her cards are really, I don't know how to explain it. They're just triggering. They're very, and not in a bad way. Like, I read it and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, that's a problem I have for sure. I get it. Okay, yeah, fair. And I recommend, even if you are an experienced tarot reader, if you decide to start using them for shadow work and you haven't yet, I would get this deck and I would read the descriptions in this book when you do the card pulls, because it is honestly very helpful. And I don't know why, and maybe it's just me because we're all different, but when I read her descriptions, when I'm doing shadow work, I feel like I just get like a download, like I just understand what it is I need to get. And I'm going to link it in the box below. They're going to be Amazon affiliate links because I am trying to make money. Let's be real. I'm not gonna bullshit you. I have bills to pay and children to feed. I'm a single mom. I'm living my life. What do you want? Okay. So there's affiliate links below. I'm not just telling you to buy things. I really fully believe in this and I recommend it highly. So Light Seers Tarot, Rider-Waite, Light Seers, and then there's a third deck that I also like to use. Never in a million years would I assume this would be a good shadow work deck. It doesn't seem like it would be, but it is. This is the Enchanted Forest Tarot, and it's a very similar situation. It's not really about the cards, which, by the way, the Light Seers deck, there is something about the artwork in the cards that is also very helpful. Like, I get information from the images itself. This isn't really that case. This one is more about the book that it comes with. So this deck comes with this big, beautiful, full color book. These cards are very kind of light. There's no reversals. There's no reversal information in it. It's all very Enchanted Forest and Fae and fairy tale kind of vibe. But there's something about the way the descriptions are written in here. And there's always a closer look thing where it points out a specific symbology in the artwork itself, which I oftentimes find to be enlightening. This description, it's the same thing as like the Light Seers. I will read the description in this book when I'm doing the shadow work, and it really, really helps. It's always very like, Oh, and I wouldn't imagine a like fairy tale tarot deck to be the one that's good for shadow work, and I don't know why it is, and maybe it's just me, but I really do like this book, or this deck, a lot for shadow work, and I would recommend it highly if you're just getting into it. If you don't have this deck, even if you're just a tarot deck collector and you don't have this one, it's really a cute deck. I will tell you, everything's been renamed in it, so there's that thing that's happening, but it's a really cool deck. I like it. So this one, the Light Seers, and the Rider-Waite, those are the 3 tarot decks that I typically use for shadow work. Now, let's talk about oracle decks, because that's really where it's at, right? When you're doing shadow work, oracle decks are, they're just gravy, right? And I use a lot more of those than I do the tarot decks. All right, now the first one is actually a new deck to me, but I got it very much for this reason, because that's what it's built for. This is the Carolyn Myss Archetypes deck. This is a shadow, like that's what it's for, honestly. And I've just got it recently, and oh my God, it's so good. The way this deck works is, there's a book. Carolyn Myss is this, she's a whole person, it's a whole thing. Feel free to Google her. I haven't read her book yet. I want to. Like, I'm just discovering her, honestly, and I feel kind of guilty about that. Like, I don't know how I missed this, but I did. She goes over archetypal energies that we hold within us. And then there are some basic ones that we kind of all have, and there's a lot of additional ones. Each card has the title of that archetype, and then it has the light attributes and the shadow attributes. And I love this because everything, your own toxic patterns and shadow behaviors, you wouldn't do them if they didn't benefit you in some way, if they didn't have something that assists you, right? And everything has a pro, a con, right? So this deck does that. It talks about the pros and the cons of each attribute. And this is a beautiful deck. It's super, by the way, it's not a deck you're gonna bridge shuffle. This thing is giant, and these cards are thick. It's very much a very thick, big, giant oracle deck. But it's honestly amazing. You can pull these. You can also just go through them. You could literally go through and journal each fucking card and see if it resonates with you, if that's an issue you might have, and start working on it that way. This deck is, I have barely started to dig into it, but I am so excited to. I actually think what I'm gonna do is make a video series about these archetypes in here. If you're interested in that, leave a comment below to let me know if you wanna see like specific videos going over. There's a lot of categories. So like there's different child archetypes, there's different this, that. So I might categorize them that way. But if you want to see a video series on some of or all of these archetypes in these cards, let me know, and I will absolutely, with excitement, do that. So this is the first oracle deck I'm going to tell you to get. It's great. All right, so if you're at all involved in the spiritual tarot oracle community, you've seen this deck because it's very popular and for very good reason. It's the Rebecca Campbell Work Your Light deck. This deck it's one of my defaults when I read for myself or even a client. Like, this is a deck I use all the time. It's really, 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 really good. The cards themselves have a little description on them, and then the book that comes with it gives some nice additional information. As a side note, I will also link below her book called Light is the New Black. It is so good. It's so good. It's, that book is so good. I'll put it below. If you are just getting into your spiritual journey, or if you fucking just haven't read it, it's amazing. I love it. There's like little stories, little poems. It's been a while. I haven't read it in a few. It's been probably been 2-3 years since I read it, I think. Whenever it came out, I recommend that too. And this is her deck. This deck it's a light workers deck is what it is. And I know that seems like the opposite of shadow work, but it's the other side of the coin. And if you can look, and it's like using the light to shine on your shadows. It's really, really helpful. The ever unfolding rose, cracked open, it's happening for you, not to you. So if I was to read that, I might take from it control issues or victim mindset. When you feel like, why is these things happening to me? Okay, well then maybe you have a victim mindset. You know what I mean? Or maybe you have a control issue. Like, it's what I'm saying about being able to intuitively guide. It is kind of the opposite. This is a light card, so look at what the shadow of that would be. That's how I recommend using this deck. It's really good for that, and I really love it. Next up is the Shapeshifter Oracle. I love this deck. Now, side note, I've kind of fucked this deck up a little bit. It'll be great when I'm done, but so this is what the cards look like, okay? They have this weird gold border that I don't like. I also don't like the backs. I also don't like how flimsy they are. So I'm trying to trim them, recut the edges, reback them, and then edge the sides so they're all black on the side. But I haven't actually finished doing that. So I have like some cards like this, and some cards like this. I got a real problem with unfinished projects. It's a problem of my life. But this book is one where a lot of Oracle decks, you just read what's on the card. This is one where you're going to want to read the book. The book is really good for this deck. The way this book speaks is each card is a shape-shifting creature. Like I just opened it up to the Fairy Bee, and it's like a shapeshifter. And it gives you about the Fairy Bee. The Fairy Bee speaks. This is like a first person, like a letter. Like it says, you ask me where the honey is, where the sweetness of life, the ease of life is. You wonder where the casual health and robust days have gone, and where the bright flowers and the sunshine have vanished to. No one took these things from you. You denied yourself your own needs and pleasures. I am here at all times, yet you have turned away from the natural world. It's like a letter to you from the creature in that card, which I have often find. Like, as I just read that, I randomly just opened this book and picked a page, and you can see how that would be communicative if you're doing shadow work, right? And then you have the divination section, which is less helpful for shadow work, but the about the Fairy Bee section, which tells you about that energy and what it is, and it's speaking to you, is oftentimes very helpful for shadow work. So this is another deck that I would really recommend if you want an Oracle deck for shadow work. Okay, I have one more deck to talk about, and this deck is, I would call it like an advanced deck. This deck is really, I think, best suited for people who have been on the journey for a while. If you made it this far in the video, I will tell you a fun fact. My actual birth name is Stormy Lantis, and my middle name is Anne. So Stormy Atlantis is quite literally my name. I changed it to say Stormy Atlantis instead of Stormy Anne Lantis, but that's my name. If you're familiar with the kind of Lemuria, Atlantis, 5D consciousness, Arcturian kind of starseed, like that vibe, if that's your realm, this is going to be a really good deck for you. This is the Beyond Lemuria deck. Now, this deck, first of all, if this is the realm that you exist in, the kind of starseed, whatever concepts, you want this deck anyways, honestly. It's so good. These are like channeled paintings with, oh my God, the information in this book is so like, I swear to you, the girl who made this, what is her, Izzy Ivy, she straight channeled, I don't know how to explain it. She channeled it into the paintings, into the book, and when you pull the cards and you start reading it, it like downloads. It's, oh my God, so good. First of all, just for the record, it's one of the most beautiful decks I've ever seen in my life. This is like, it's just so pretty. And it's a Lemuria themed kind of deck. It's gorgeous. And this is the kind of deck where the information's not on the cards. It's not. This one is called Full Spectrum. No idea what it means, right? You have to use the book. But the book, it's magic. It really just like download understandings where you start reading it and you're like, oh, okay. It's really fantastic. Just as an example, I pulled number 26, which is called Full Spectrum. The way it's broken down is there's a short synopsis here, and there's all this information, and then there's a divinatory meaning. I'm just going to read you the short synopsis on the one that I just pulled. Creating heaven on earth by honoring the perfection of nature's cycles, going beyond the judgment of good and bad, the merging of duality, raw nature, earth wisdom, connecting to the ancestors, shadows as the fertile soil for exponential growth. Weird, that's the one I pulled, right? And the way forward is, the way forward is in the whisperings of the land, honoring the full spectrum of life. That's the short synopsis. And then you can read all this information where she expands upon that idea. And as you can already tell, it's going to get juicy, right? This deck is so good for growth and expansion, shadow work, these kinds of things. I cannot recommend it enough. And again, I think, I mean, anybody can buy it, right? But my instinct is that it's more of a, you've been on the path for a while kind of deck, right? You have to kind of already have, there's a lot of references in this deck that you may not grasp or get or understand. You may have to do research to get them. Like, I think it's just one of those decks where you kind of already have to have a good baseline. You have to already have like a general education in spiritual concepts before you can start to really grasp what's in here. If that makes sense. It's like, you gotta do all the 101 courses, and then this is like 201, right? I hope that makes sense. I mean, and again, if you don't have that deck in your, of the Lemuria kind of starseed mindset, just buy it anyways, because it's fantastic. It's just so good. I would really love for this video to kind of become a micro community for shadow work with cartomancy. So if you have a spread or a method or a tip that you feel it would be a really important inclusion here, please comment it below so that it can kind of become a little micro library for people who are coming to this video. Additionally, I would like to know personally, who's watching this? So are you familiar with shadow work with tarot? Did you watch the other video? Are you new to tarot at all? Are you new to shadow work at all? Like, I want to know who's kind of, I tried to cover all the bases in this video from very beginner to advanced, but I don't really know who's actually watching it. So if you could let me know, that'd be really helpful. Additionally, if you aren't following me on Instagram and Twitter, handle Stormy Atlantis, come join the party. And if you appreciated this video, it really helps me. It means a lot if you can leave a comment, like it, or subscribe if you haven't already. You can also hit the bell for notifications if you want to know exactly when I publish a video, which I'm trying to do twice a week. And that's really all I have. So have a wonderful day and good luck on your journey.